Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. Today we have Douglas Chrystall with us today. He's a founder at TruVideo, has lived a nomad life for some time, just like I did, but he did it, I think, in a van, probably a bit more extensively than I did. So, interesting guy in New England, and yet a TruVideo, precisely the vanguard of AI communication platform for the service industry with rich technical pedigree. That is Douglas, and yeah, he's spearheaded numerous prosperous software ventures, including IMCIDA software. This one was
Consider, yeah.
acquired by Quest Software for 61 million. So Douglas, welcome to the pod. How was that after the 61 million exit? Were you set for life after that, or what?
Yeah. Well, when you set out on these journeys, I think one of the famous quotes that people often sort of say is, if somebody offers me $61 million, that's going to be a good problem to have to decide whether to sell or not to sell. But I think a lot of people who are probably listening to this, and maybe even yourself, is as you go along the journey, you make that statement, and then when you get to that point in time, it becomes a very difficult decision. Um, and yes, that certainly set me up very well. I'd had very successful ventures before then, but yeah, that was a particularly nice sort of exit at that particular sort of time. But as we sort of look at it, that product went on to do a lot more revenue, and so when I look at the revenue that product created, you have a bit of FOMO. You look at it, it may have brought in nearly $1 billion, sort of since I actually sort of sold that. So did I sell at the right time? Maybe, maybe not. But also that product that I sold for $61 million, I'd offered to sell to a company 1 week after developing it for $360,000. And they turned me down. So, so I look at that and sort of say, okay, maybe I could have made more, if I'd stuck at it longer. But also, I'm very thankful that a company, turned me down when I nearly sold it for 300,000.
Very interesting. And were you just built different, right? Like, because when you compare yourself to your peers, I'm pretty sure you see that you're quite unique in that regard. You build companies, sold them. This is extremely hard. Like, were you just built that way for the startup world?
Yeah, this is interesting, and I've had this conversation. In fact, I was talking about this sort of last night. I was talking with some people about entrepreneurial school, and degrees in entrepreneurship. And I sort of look at that and sort of say, if you attend or you go and take an entrepreneurship degree, the only qualification you should have to get into that degree program is, did you start a business before? Because I see so many people who go on these entrepreneurship courses, and they've got no chance of developing a company or a product. Maybe like yourself, Charles, but I certainly know myself. When I look at something or I look at a problem or a challenge, I always think, could I make a product with that? Could I make that better? Um, and you sort of say being built differently. It's hard to really describe as being sort of built differently, but when I was 6 years old, I was trying to sell rose water to friends, and then I sold my first software program at the age of 12. It's a golf handicapping system. So I've always been interested in entrepreneurship, and trying to build up that business. And I had a very strong technical background because of my father. My father was a mathematician, and so I was around computers at a very young age. But I left computers when I was a late teenager, and I actually moved into sales. And for a number of years, I had built a sales career. And when I left one of those sales positions, I was wondering what to do. And there was a job for people who remember, there was something called Microsoft Access. a job became available in Microsoft Access. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about the language. So I bought Access in 30 days, studied that book, went for the job interview, and then that basically got me back into software development. So that's kind of the early part of my story. And and for me as a developer and having that technical background, I think those few years of sales really transformed what I managed to do with sort of software and software businesses.
Right. I think entrepreneurship is such an alien world to most, though. And like it's mostly pain and working all the time. Of course, you get to convert that pain into joy. You get to gamify it, right? There's a bunch of tricks to that. But I think that, yeah, students that get into these entrepreneurship program, it's all fun and games, right? It's like ideas and all of that. But I think, yeah, they should sort of develop some sense for execution and a real sense of it. Like, I don't know about you, but at 18, I started entrepreneurship. It was very much a part-time thing. At 17, I would like import stuff from China, resell it in my native Canadian market. And it was just like dollar per hour optimization, sort of. I didn't really know that, yeah, entrepreneurship would need to be something that I would need to be full-time in, that there would be very strong periods, but also very low periods. And I feel that, yeah, entrepreneurships do that. I don't know, maybe engage in cross country or very painful activities to understand like that it's a very long run, and develop that grit. I believe it is the main thing, because when I was thrown in the market at 19, it was time to get a job. I was like, yeah, that's not what I expected. First, it's pretty hard to get a job, and I was sort of raised on video games and drinking nesties in my parents' basements, and I didn't really have the notion of hard work. So I think that's something that needs to be developed in people. How do you actually develop that skill in young people?
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. So I was talking with my friend's son, the other day, and he's actually on an entrepreneurship course, and we were looking at the curriculum, and I sat down with him, had a chat with him, and to me, before you think about the entrepreneurial journey and everything sort of else that's sort of entwined with that, is I sort of said, can you pick up a phone and call a stranger? Because when I look at what a lot of people do is, they'll do a lot of things other than the actual bit of work to actually sort of sell something. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be able to sell. And in some ways, we could argue in almost any job or any position, you have to do some selling. You might need to sell an idea to your marketing department, or to other teammates. So selling is a really important skill. But the number one criteria that I push people, and when I advise startups, is pick up and call a customer. And it's like, well, we don't have a product ready yet, or I don't have a data sheet ready yet. It's like, don't worry about that. Just call somebody and try and pitch them the idea, and then see what they say. And if they don't do that, or they struggle to do that, then we've got, I think, bigger issues than worrying about sort of being an entrepreneur sort of business or getting up and going. So that's kind of my opinion.
That's so true, but I think that's also like grit and facing your fears. Again, coming back to me, the young guy, like hooked on video games, I didn't have much notions of facing my fears, and I remember even as a younger guy was always sort of shy and asking girls out, and that's a skill that is always like super useful, to come up to people and ask something. Why is that not infused into us as young people? Why is not sales not a natural thing, not taught to us at school? Because exactly to what you were mentioning, my first business was well, I mean, it wasn't never a business, because we bought a pickup truck, was a mobile car wash. So we invested 5K in that, as we were like 16 or something. We're about to buy the equipment. We printed the fancy flyers. My dad's a marketing consultant. When came the
Mm-hmm.
time to go knock on doors, silence. I was
Yep.
scared shitless. I didn't know sales back then. And that was my first business failure. It failed before it even started, right? It was like comfort zone and just me not willing to do what needed to be done. And I think my first boost in life that I can attribute to my first mentor was job that I got at like 18 while I was working on my entrepreneurship stuff, slowly but surely. And my mentor had me call 200 folks per day, architects, engineers. And I still have an accent up to this day from Montreal, and I would call these Canadians, these very rational architects and engineers, and get
Yep.
fucked off probably like 10 to 15% of the time. What is that, 30 calls per day telling you to fuck
Mm-hmm.
off? And I think that really broke my shell, and from there it was game on. But sometimes I reflect back on that and I'm like, maybe I should have started with product instead, because product is very much trendy nowadays. And I feel that's how you retain customers, right? You reduce churn, they naturally refer you. And ultimately I would even think that in an AI age, in probably 10 to 15 years, sales would somewhat disappear and it would be pure product led. What do you think about that hypothesis?
Oh. So how many minutes in, and we're now talking about AI?
Yeah, it
Um,
has.
yeah, it's really interesting. So of course, sort of AI, it already is replacing sales, in some respect. But and I think we might go through a period of time where you might sort of say, well, AI can actually do a better job of selling to somebody than an actual person. But I've got a sense that it's going to end up with your AI agent talking to my AI agent. So, right now I don't have the defense as a consumer of having my own AI agent there to deal with inquiries, etc. It's all on the offense. It's all on the selling side. But that will happen. Obviously, with agentic technology where that's going, it's right now we're just at the edge of I can tell an AI agent to basically go to OpenTable, go and book me I want a steak restaurant this Friday. Here's some of my criteria. It goes and finds one. Makes the booking for me online. Now, at some point, that restaurant, maybe OpenTable provide this, or that restaurant will have their own AI agent. So instead of the Google demo from a few years ago, where it was calling and making a booking, it's just going to be an agent talking to an agent saying, okay, I have this person, I want to make this sort of booking. One thing is happening though is the hyper personalization that I think people are missing in sort of that's what AI is picking up. So AI is really understanding is this is the kind of steak restaurant I like, or the type of cuisine I like. I like to eat at this time. Where's the parking? And that hyper personalization can then be given to to whatever I'm booking, and I can get a better experience sort of from it. So it's sort of interesting is, yes, I think AI is going to take over a lot of these. It's going to act as a co-pilot. We're working on technology here where as a customer, as a salesperson at a dealership is talking with a customer, we're basically co-piloting, and we're telling what the salesperson should be saying. So that's assisted. We're finding customers talking with an AI agent. About 35% of them are okay with it. The rest will either hang up or will want to transfer. That's gone up from 20% just a year ago. So acceptance is building up there. But again, I think at some point it becomes agent to agent and less direct interaction in pure sales.
Right. And with TruVideo, I checked out the platform. It's pretty neat. I can see the need for garages to do that. My garage, I think they use like some kind of CRM or communication technology, right? Everything's on WhatsApp nowadays. They send me PDF quotes on WhatsApp. It's pretty quick. You're also like integrating video, which is great. I do think they're sending me video, but just on their cell phones, right? So it's less organized like your platform. And I do believe you even have like text corrector and some AI integrations, right? Tell me a bit more about that, and what market share you're going after with this.
Yeah, so kind of take you a little bit back on, so TruVideo. So obviously you see the video platform, we're in communication. So when we started off as a video solution, we were struggling to actually deliver the videos, for our customers. And so that got us into the messaging ecosystem. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, with our messaging platform, we basically do AI assisted messaging now. So we act as that co-pilot. It started off, almost like Google Complete. You're basically just completing your sentences. But now what we're doing on behalf of our customers is a customer sends a text message in, we read that message, and then we will actually craft a response, and we can actually send that response back to that customer. So a common question in automotive is my car ready? We can basically look, at the database, understand, whether the car is ready or not, or the position, and then basically sort of send that on behalf of the service advisor. And although we grew up very much in automotive, we're in many other markets, and we switched from that direct sales model. So we don't sell to dealers anymore. We actually sell to other software companies who look to deliver video and communication, basic to their customer base.
And where's the AI into this?
So AI. So we use AI in various locations. So AI is used to analyze the communication back and forth between a service advisor or a technician and the customer. So we're using AI to listen to the sentiment. So if a customer's starting to sound sort of angry, they're upset, AI will pick up on that and can basically notify a service manager and say, hey, Charles is sounding upset about the interaction right now with the service advisor. That allows them to sort of step in. On the sales side, if you're basically having a message conversation with Charles, I'm trying to sell you a vehicle, then it will actually pop up as a co-pilot and tell me what to say to you. I'm trying to get you to an appointment, but it's giving me basically the words and phrases that are going to convince you to take an appointment to then go and have a look at that vehicle. So those are some of the areas that we're using AI.
And what's been the most challenging thing about running this business?
So the challenging. So I think the most challenging was a number of years ago was we were selling directly to the dealers at the time, and that was a really slow, hard game. That was basically cold calling 101. So going back to how you started, Charles, and you think about how you got going, it was basically dialing for dollars. Because if you look at a lot of software businesses, when you look at starting a new business, you used to say, okay, is there a need for this? So let's have a look at Google. Are people searching to solve this problem? And then you go, okay, well, they are. They're going to Google and they're saying, I have this problem. How do I solve it? That's quite easy. You can then advertise, do SEO marketing to then sort of, answer that problem. For our market, for car dealers, they were not saying, how can I be more transparent in my sales process here? So we can't advertise on Google. We can't put articles out there. The audience didn't really go to the web, and look for self-help guides. They were just in their own little ecosystem. So we basically had to start, and we had to start with the cold calling. We built up a really good customer base. It was a hard slog. We were getting great results. But we looked at this and sort of said, we can't keep doing this. This is going to be really hard to scale. And so the bit that really changed our fortunes was we said, who owns the customer today? Who is that trusted advisor, to the dealership? And it was basically the ERP or the dealer management system provider to the dealers. So we said, well, why don't we look to license our software to these DMS vendors and let them sell it as an add-on to the dealers? And when we did that, that's when things really took off. And we now replicate that in trucking and now into other service markets.
Interesting. So what are your top goals for this year? What do you want to achieve, last but not least?
Last but not least, well, there's always a revenue goal, but when I look at our sort of software, and when we look at our video technology, so we have a really strong video product, that we have a lot of partners who are now using, and it's really bringing in kind of that next stage of video technology. So what we look at is there's a lot of great things you can do with video technology. There's augmented reality, there's vision and machine learning. So we've developed a lot of technology basically within this marketplace using AI, using machine learning, using augmented reality, but those are very difficult to develop. What we're doing is we're looking to democratize that and basically deliver a platform that it's very easy for organizations to deliver their solutions using those really sort of modern vision technologies. Example, if you're in a museum, and today when you look at a museum, you might look at a picture or a painting, and maybe there's a little explanation on the wall. Some companies have tried to develop sort of augmented reality to try and explain the painting. What we're doing is we're making that you could basically deliver that functionality just with basically low code or no code, a few clicks, and basically as you're looking at the painting, you're now getting a 3D visual effect of that painting. So to really make the engagement level in items that you're looking at a lot easier to deliver to a customer base.
Right. I like that. Sounds complicated. It's a lot of product work, I guess. Douglas, where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, so TruVideo.com without the E, TruVideo.com.
So that was Douglas and Charles.